All right, so we are going to talk about box and whisker plots. So just looking at some definitions, we're going to match the definitions to the chart below. So, minimum is the lowest part of the data set. So minimum is the lowest part. So that is going to be down here. This is the minimum. That's the smallest number in the data set. Um, we're gonna just kind of skip around. The median is the middle, the very middle. This line represents the median. So this number is the median. Then, so that's right in the middle of the data. Q1, or the lower quartile, is the median. So it's the middle of the lower half. So we're looking at this half of the data. Q1 is the middle of that. So this is the lower quartile. And that's called Q1. Um, and then the upper half of the data is called quartile 3, and that's called the upper quartile. So that's this part of the box. And that's called Q3. And then if the bottom part was the minimum, this upper half is then the maximum. Okay, so that takes care of this word, all of those, right? So we still need to talk about the interquartile range. Okay, so the interquartile range, or IQR, is the difference in the quartiles, the difference between the upper and the lower quartile. So IQR is this number to this number. So this is IQR. It's when we take the Q3 and subtract it from Q1. So that's the box. It's how big the box is. Okay. Yes. What else is important is that each box, each section, because it's 4 sections, right? Here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one. That's 4 sections. Each is 25% of the data. So it's not 25%, it's 25% of the data points. So each segment is worth 25. So this is 25, this is 25, that's 25, and that's 25. Okay, so that's kind of an important piece to remember. All right, so looking at this box and whisker plot, which percentage, so this is the percentages of 20 students on a test. So which is my upper quartile? So it might be helpful to label. So this is Q1, Q2, median, and Q3. Okay, so the upper quartile is Q3. So we're just kind of gonna estimate that. It's close to 95, but it's not exactly close. So we're gonna go like 93 is the percentage. What is the range of the scores overall? So to figure that out, the range, remember, is big minus small. So we're gonna do our maximum, which looks like it's like 98, to our minimum, which looks like it's about 68. So we'll do 98 minus 68, and that's going to give us 30. So the range in the scores is 30%. So the highest grade was a 98%, the lowest grade was a 68%. And what's the middle? What's the median percentage? The median is this middle part of the box. The median's about an 85, which isn't bad. So what's the maximum score? That's the biggest number. This is the maximum, so that's 98. Um, Next is what's the IQR? So remember IQR is when you do Q3 minus Q1. So we're going to take our quartiles. So we're going to take this number of 93, and take this number, the of 78-ish, and subtract them. That's my IQR. Is when we take the upper quartile, the 93, and subtract the lower quartile of Q1. And that's what, 15? I think so. Okay. Now for this next question, it says how many scores are less than 78? First, we need to find 78 on our graph. And that is, sorry, hold on. I hate this eraser. 78 on our graph is right here. So 78 is this number. And how many are less than that? Well, less than that is one section, so 25% of the data. But we don't want to know what percent of the data. We want to know exactly how many people scored less than 78. And we know that there's 20 students. So we're going to do 25% of 20. But this 25%, of course, we know we need to make it into a decimal. So 25% as a decimal is 0.25. So do 0.25 times 20. So 25% of 20, we're doing 0.25 times 20. And that tells us that there's 5 scores less than 78. So 5 people scored less than 78%. Now we want to do how many people scored between 78 and 93. So let's figure out what part of the graph that is. So 93, 78, that's this part of the data. That's 25% here, 25% here. So together, we're talking about 50% of the data, 50% of the people scored that. And again, there's 20 people, so 50% of 20. Make that a decimal, ignore the percent sign, is 10 people, 10 scores. Okay, so now you'll do the homework, and it's really similar to that.